I was 22, just trying to make it through college while keeping the lights on. Working the night shift at Pinecrest gas station, just outside of Mill Creek, wasn't exactly what I dreamed of doing, but it paid the bills. The job was usually quiet, nothing but the hum of the fluorescent lights and the occasional trucker stopping by for gas. It was a small town, the kind where everybody knew everybody, but at 2 in the morning, it felt like I was the only person in the world. Most nights dragged on, uneventful. Just me scrolling through my phone or organizing the same shelves over and over. But that night, something was different. The shift started like any other. It was a Tuesday night, the deadest night of the week. I was fighting to keep my eyes open, watching the clock as the seconds ticked by. 1:47 in the morning. The bell above the door chimed, and I glanced up, expecting to see one of the regulars. But no one came in. The door was shut. I stared at it, my brow furrowing. Maybe a draft? But I knew that wasn't right. The door at Pinecrest was heavy. You had to push hard to open it. It never moved on its own. Feeling uneasy, I checked the security cameras. The lot was empty. Just the flicker of the street lamp casting long shadows across the asphalt. No one was outside. Weird, I thought. Probably just my imagination playing tricks on me. I went back to my phone, trying to distract myself, but that uneasy feeling lingered. 15 minutes passed. Then it happened again. The bell above the door chimed. I shot up, fully alert this time. Again, the door hadn't moved. The silence felt heavy, thick. I listened, trying to make sense of it, when I heard something else, a soft shuffle, like footsteps dragging across the floor behind one of the shelves. "Hello?" I called out, my voice breaking the stillness. "We're open if you need something." No answer. My heart was racing now. I stayed behind the counter, scanning the aisles for any movement. It was just me in the store, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Then came the tapping. Light at first, barely noticeable. It was coming from the window, like someone tapping their fingers on the glass. I turned, staring out into the dimly lit parking lot, but there was no one there. Just the flicker of the streetlight. I was about to chalk it up to paranoia when I saw it movement. A shadow, quick and fleeting, slipping behind one of the aisles. My blood ran cold. "Hey," I shouted, stepping out from behind the counter, my voice shaky. "If you're in here, this isn't funny." I walked slowly toward the back of the store, my footsteps echoing on the tile. As I rounded the corner, I froze. The back door, the one that should always be locked, was slightly open. Just enough for a sliver of darkness to creep in from outside. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I couldn't remember unlocking that door. Did I forget? My hands were shaking as I reached out to close it, the cold metal of the door handle biting against my palm. I locked it, double-checking to make sure it was secure, then hurried back to the counter. That's when the lights flickered, once, twice, and then they went out. The store plunged into darkness. My phone screen was the only light now, casting long, eerie shadows across the aisles. I grabbed it, my hands trembling, as I dialed the store's manager. Voicemail, of course. I was about to try again when I noticed something outside the window. A figure standing just beyond the flickering street lamp. At first, I thought it was a person, someone waiting for gas or just messing around. But then I realized it wasn't normal. The figure was too tall, its limbs too long. Its arms hung down past its knees, its head tilted slightly to one side, staring at me. I couldn't see its face in the dim light, but I knew it was watching me. Its presence filled the air with a cold, suffocating dread. I froze, staring back at it, my heart pounding in my chest. It didn't move. It just stood there, like it was waiting. And then, slowly it took a step forward. I stumbled back, my mind screaming at me to move, but my body wouldn't listen. Another step. It was coming toward the door. I snapped out of it, rushing behind the counter, my hands fumbling as I tried to grab my phone. I dialed 911, but in my panic, I dropped it. The phone clattered to the floor, the sound echoing in the darkness. I glanced back at the window. The figure was gone. For a moment, I thought maybe I had imagined the whole thing. But then, the doorbell chimed. The door creaked open. I didn't need to look. I knew something had just come inside, and it wasn't human. I worked the night shift at a small local grocery store in a quiet town. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays the bills. My name is Alex. I'm 27, and I've been stuck in this town my whole life. Things usually go smoothly on my shifts, mostly restocking shelves, helping the occasional night owl find a carton of milk or a loaf of bread. But lately, things have been different. It started with little things. Flickering lights, a low hum in the back coolers that I swore wasn't there before. At first, I brushed it off. This place is old, falling apart even. It's probably just bad wiring or an aging cooling system. At least, that's what I told myself. But as the nights dragged on, the oddities became harder to ignore. One night, I was restocking aisle 3, the cereal aisle, when I heard it, this faint, raspy breathing, like someone was standing right behind me. I spun around, heart racing, but the aisle was empty. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The store was dead silent. No customers, no one around. I told myself I was just tired, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. Later that night, while mopping the floors, I saw something out of the corner of my eye movement in the back by the freezers. Just a shadow, quick and fleeting, but enough to make my pulse spike. I rushed over, heart pounding, expecting to find someone hiding back there, but again, there was no one. Just rows of frozen dinners and ice cream. I was starting to think I was losing it. Then, last Friday, things took a turn for the worse. I clocked in around 11 p.m. like usual, but the atmosphere felt heavier. The store was too quiet. It felt like the walls were closing in. Around 2 in the morning, I was in the back office, taking inventory, when I heard the store's intercom crackle to life. No one should have been using it, especially not at this hour. The voice that came through was garbled, barely audible, but I caught one chilling word: leave. I jumped up from my chair, heart racing, and bolted to the front of the store. No one was there. The parking lot was empty, and the sliding doors were closed. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, listening to the dead silence, waiting for anything to happen. But nothing did. Not then, at least. That's when I noticed something on the security monitors. I usually keep an eye on them throughout the night, just to make sure no one's messing around in the store. But on this night, one of the cameras, camera 6, the one that covers the back storage room, showed something that made my blood run cold. There was someone or something standing just out of frame. I could see the edge of a shadow, a dark figure lingering near the doorway to the back. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a broom, and slowly made my way toward the storage room. My palms were sweating, my heart was pounding in my chest, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. When I reached the storage room, it was empty, but the temperature had dropped unnaturally cold for that part of the store. And then I saw it scrawled in what looked like red paint on the back wall. You shouldn't have come back. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This was no prank. No one else had been in the store all night. I turned to leave, but as I did, the lights in the room flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. My heart raced, and I fumbled for my phone, using its dim light to guide me back toward the door. That's when I heard it again, that raspy, labored breathing, this time much closer. I bolted for the exit, not looking back. The doors to the store slid open, and I raced to my car. As I drove off, I glanced back at the store, half expecting to see that shadowy figure standing in the doorway, watching me leave. but the store looked empty, just like it always did. I haven't gone back since. I quit the next morning, and when I told my boss why, he just looked at me with this knowing expression, like he'd heard it all before. "You're not the first one to quit because of the night shift," he said, "and you won't be the last." I still don't know what I saw or what was haunting that store. But one thing's for sure, there's something lurking in the shadows during the night shift, and whatever it is, it doesn't want you there. And if you ever find yourself working a night shift at an empty store, remember, some places are better left in the dark. I've been working the night shift at Bill's Diner for almost a year. It's quiet, mostly truckers or late-night wanderers stopping by. One night, around 3 in the morning, the door chimed and a man walked in. He was dressed in an old, worn-out suit, his hair messy and skin pale. There was something off about him, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I grabbed a menu and walked over. "What can I get you?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't look at the menu. He just stared ahead and said in a low, raspy voice, "Coffee." I brought him the coffee, but he didn't touch it. He just sat there, eyes fixed on something behind me. After a long silence, he asked, "Do you believe in ghosts?" The question caught me off guard. I gave a nervous laugh. "Not really," I said, "but I've heard stories." His gaze shifted to me, and his eyes were hollow, like he wasn't really seeing me. "I didn't either," he muttered, until it was too late. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. The man reached into his pocket and placed a folded piece of paper on the counter. Then, without another word, he stood up and walked out, leaving his coffee untouched. I stared at the paper for a moment before picking it up and unfolding it. My blood ran cold. It was a death notice with my name on it. The date was today, and at the bottom, it read, "Time of death, 3:27 in the morning." I glanced at the clock. It was 3:22 in the morning. My heart pounded in my chest. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911, but before I could hit call, the lights flickered and the diner went dark. I stood frozen, the air around me suddenly icy cold. I could feel someone in the room with me. Then, from the shadows, I heard that same raspy voice whisper, "Too late." I didn't wait to find out what was going to happen. I bolted for the door, crashing through it and into the night. When I looked back, the diner was normal again, lights on, empty inside. But I knew what I had seen, and I wasn't going back. I quit the next day. Now, every time I drive past that diner, I make sure I'm nowhere near it at 3:27 in the morning.